members and our special guests tonight. Welcome to our meeting this evening. We'll begin by acknowledging the Ngambri and the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the land and the waters of the Light Regional Council area. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today. Our attendance, we have no apologies at this point, but we do have a leave of absence and a recommendation there if someone would like to move that way. Please. Thanks, Councillor Lynn. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Alley. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. I'll enjoy those few days. We have no non-attendance, but we do now have section 3 as a confirmation of our council minutes. The first one being that the minutes of the confidential minutes of the meeting of the ordinary council meeting held Tuesday the 22nd of October 2024 be confirmed as a true and correct record of that meeting. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Allison. And a seconder, Councillor Lynette. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thanks, councillors. We move on to communications, and I must say I've had an extremely busy period, but one that I have a lot of mixed emotions about. 98% really good, a couple very sad. One was, of course, although not so sad, I was the pallbearer at Ross Vote's funeral. Ross is a dear friend of our council, this region, and possibly big parts of the state through his motorbike expeditions. But Ross Vote was 101 when he passed, and he was still cooking his own meals at that stage. Also, we had a session at the Senior Sits who were so grateful, Kapunda Senior Sits, pardon me, councillors, who were so grateful for our council's contribution to their new car park. And that also goes without saying to the Musical Society who used the building next to that. They were extremely grateful for that, and they showed their appreciation by giving us a nice little plaque. Remembrance Day at Greenock is something I'm going to remember for a long time. It was absolutely wonderful. Greenock has been very low-key when it comes to the 11th of the 11th and even Anzac Day, because they've had one small memorial in a garden in the corner of their main street. That memorial had 3 names on it, only 3 names. This time, it's all changed. A historian called Anthony McLean, who is actually a local resident there, spent 3 years researching soldiers that had left Greenock to fight in World War I and World War II. He's brought back 150 names, and those names now are embedded in that memorial. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's wonderful. Certainly it raised a lot of attention in the media, and certainly more importantly, the local people. We would have had probably near 300 people there on that occasion, some wonderful speakers, and an occasion that I'm not going to forget for a long time. It was really, really traditional and outstanding. So Greenock can really take a bow for their contribution to that, and certainly Anthony McLean for his wonderful research into getting those names together. Must have been an extraordinary job. Also, the invitation of the Premier that went to the Adelaide 500, the car race down there. It's certainly an honour to be invited, and it's a great feeling to be down there amongst the atmosphere and the cars and all of that. But just as importantly as the people you get to meet when you're there, like-minded people, many mayors, of course, you can have a chat to and talk to and whatever else. And it's a great feeling. And walking through there and seeing what they've done with that whole space in that time is a great credit to this state. It's a fantastic place, and there was just so many people there. It was unbelievable. So I really did appreciate that time down there. A couple of Sundays ago, I had the good fortune of launching a book or being part of a book launch, I should say, rephrase that, in our institute here in Kapunda. It was called On World's End Highway by an American author called Nancy Nancy Jackson, who lives in Point Pass. And it's an extraordinary book of a property that her and her friend bought in Point Pass and recreated an old barn and dairy into where they live now. And she talks about the history of the whole region. And she's an American, but she knew more about South Australia and this region around here than I certainly did. And the combination of the names, the German names from the Barossa being part of that whole region, it was quite an extraordinary sort of book, and a very popular book launch too. Roseanne Hawke, our famous author from here, was a major contributor to that day. Fantastic book, and one really worthwhile, and hopefully we'll get it into our library here. I went to the LGA last week's annual general meeting and their forum. It was an excellent meeting, as it usually is, very tight. Those AGMs and general meetings used to go for 2 days, and we used to hold up cards to vote. And if you had a green card, you get 1 vote, and if you had a red card, you got 3, and all of that. Well, none of that anymore. It's all very efficient. And their annual general meeting, that all the motions are highly vetted to be relevant to the meeting and so forth. And it's all the voting is electronically done, and it's done very efficiently and quickly. A new president, who's a good friend of mine, Heather Holmes-Ross. Heather's the mayor of Mitcham Council. Controversial figure when she needs to be and when she wants to be, but she'll do a mighty job, and she'll do it her way. But it was really good to be there, and to also to pass on our communications to the many other mayors that were there, and other dignitaries. I don't think I have much more to add to that. The Kapunda High School is still doing good things up there, and that building, that Aringa building, is really starting to come alive. It's quite amazing what they've done up there through that works program, which they were acknowledged for. I went up there on this occasion for, again, one of their wellness breakfasts. They're looking after each other, these young people up there, and it's a great credit to them. They're not only working on their own building and trying to fix that, they're helping their other teammates around them are not doing it quite so well, or doing it a bit tough. And they have these wellness breakfasts every 3 months or so. It was a nice occasion. So that's about me for that period. Any council reports, councillors? Anything you'd like to raise? Councillor Fabio?
Yeah, through the chair. I'd like to say that I was invited to attend the Barossa Industry Events Awards evening that was held at the Lambert Estate Winery, in which the 2023 Kapunda Rodeo was nominated for Event of the Year. The presentation, the evening was attended by probably about 200 people, a lot of different business people around the place, and event nominees as well. Ashton Hearn was there from in her capacity as well, and it gives me great pleasure to announce that the Kapunda Rodeo actually took out the Event of the Year for the Barossa Industry Events Award, which shows that that presence that we as Light Regional Council have across the Barossa and the broader region as well. So yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Fabio. And I must also take my hat off to you and the team behind Saturday night's rodeo. 4,500 people, one minor problem, someone who had too many cans. You've done a fantastic job, and it's a great credit to the committee and to the town and to the competitors and so forth, and the people that attended. Wonderful, and you might get the community event of the year again, who knows? But no, you've really set the standard. There's no doubt about that. It was absolutely brilliant. Well done. I know you had a fair hand in that event. Councillors, we move on to the confirmation of our minutes. The confirmation of the minutes and confidential minutes of the ordinary meeting. We didn't do this, I don't think, did we?
Yep.
We did. Oh, sorry. We're on to communications again, down to requested documents. There are none to be tabled, and we have no petitions. But we do have a deputation tonight, and and a presentation from about the Kapunda Art Project. And I have two of my very dear friends, Danny Menzel and Maxine Donald, representing the Kapunda Mural Town Subcommittee, here tonight to tell us a little bit about this project. And I would like to commend both of you for the contribution you put into the arts of this community. And the mural project is certainly one. Danny's contribution has been outstanding, and you walk around the town and you'll see enough of that. And the one that won the national award as well, it's there. And I think Councillor Dean, you were very much behind the initiating a mural towns sort of project on the basis of something you've seen in Tasmania a long time ago. But it's been worked on, and now I think we're going to hear something quite exciting tonight from Maxine and Danny. So I welcome you to our meeting if you'd like to let us know what we've got in store.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. Hello, and thanks for the opportunity to give a presentation about the possibility of having artwork painted on our silos whenever an opportunity arises in Kapunda, and how it can benefit the town and region. Sorry. Sorry about that. I've been involved in the Kapunda Mural Committee for about 7 years, and during that time we've produced quite a few murals and street art that have won awards and gained national exposure. This exposure has attracted tourists and travellers and entices them to stay longer to observe the artwork and frequent our shops and eateries. One thing I was asked a lot while painting some of these murals, and our committee members also get asked, is when are our silos going to be painted? We say if we get enough support, we can try and make it happen. So hopefully what I present to you this evening will begin the process. I think having our silos painted with relevant artwork that tells Kapunda's story would provide another draw card for passers-by to visit Kapunda and provide another level in the look and vibrancy of our town. The silos are located centrally in Kapunda, and there is a small track off Hancock Road that makes its way right up to the silos. I'm unsure about the future plans about this, however, the silos are easily visible as you drive into Kapunda from the south, as well as various locations such as Perry's Service Station and the Foodland Supermarket car park, and partially off Hancock Road. With the silos being a landmark for many years, I think it would be extremely important for them to be painted by a top quality professional. I suggest Sam Bates, also known as Smug, and I consider him to be the best in Australia and the ideal artist to transform the silos into a striking landmark. He is originally from Melbourne and is now based in Glasgow, Scotland. He has recently completed a silo mural in Lameroo, and he's done several others in SA, including Warabra. As you can see, his attention to detail and his skills are quite incredible. This one at Nullawil, and he's done others in Victoria as well, such as Horsham. I've contacted him a couple of times about the possibility of painting Kapunda's silos and the processes involved. He said his silo work goes through a public art company called Juddy Roller, based in Melbourne, and have handled many silo art projects around Australia. They handle the project management, materials and preparation, so Smug can concentrate on his painting. So I've contacted Juddy Roller, who were interested in providing a proposal using a rough design I put together. This design is purely positional for visual purposes. Basically, it tells a brief story about Kapunda from its mining origins through to the present and beyond as a strong agricultural region, as shown by this young child looking out into a wheat crop and farm. But I think it would be important to engage the public and give everyone an opportunity to have a say on what should be depicted on the silos. This would generate interest in the project and make it a fair outcome, or perhaps give the public some options from which to choose. As you can see by these visuals, the top 2/3 would be very visible from various locations. These locations are perfect for taking photographs. Perhaps other spaces and views to the silos could be developed further to cater for demand. The bottom third of the painting could be less detailed depending on the availability of accessing the track right up to the silos. There has already been quite a bit of interest shown by the public about having our silos painted. On the Kapunda Mural Trail, Kapunda Mural Town Facebook page in September, we put up a post to gauge public interest and whether anyone would consider making donations to help fund such a project. The post gained 42 likes and 29 comments, mostly by people who were for the project and happy to make donations. There has been a study by Dr. Amelia Green from Griffith University to get a professional insight into the value of Australian silo art. In the study, she has outlined implications and recommendations for local councils and the community, such as community consultation before and throughout the silo art planning process is essential, and ensure silo artworks tell genuine local stories that local communities want to talk about for years to come. Her findings are a great resource and reinforce that the value of the silo art trail is multifaceted, for example, social, cultural and economic. Some of the benefits of the Australian Silo Art Trail and the impact it can have on the communities and regional tourism were to celebrate uniqueness of individual towns and initiate conversations among residents and tourists well after the paint dries, reactivate and meaningfully reinterpret grain silos, and stimulate the surrounding public space upgrades. Here's a media article about Karoonda silos that show how many towns were experiencing a boost to trading and accommodation since their silo art was finished. It says last year, researchers from Griffith University surveyed 1,100 businesses, residents and visitors from the Silo Art Trail, and about 47% had noticed a collective economic benefit from the silo art. A lot of silos have become part of a nationwide silo trail, which includes 18 painted in South Australia. With Kapunda being located between Owen and Yadunda, our silos would be an ideal location to travel through. Juddy Roller has prepared a quote based on the dimensions of the silos and Smug painting the artworks on the eastern and southern viewpoints. The total cost would be $92,235, including GST. This includes the artist fees, material, accommodation, and project management. Hire of equipment such as a boom lift is preferred to be arranged by the purchaser and is not included in the quote. Juddy Roller states the silo's surface is already a condition suitable for painting, requiring little to no preparation. A timeline for such a project is approximately 4 months, which involves 4 stages being consultation, pre-production, production mural installation, and the completion handover. Maintenance requirements for the silos ongoing after completion are expected to be minimal to none. I think the Light region, in particular Kapunda, has a strong agricultural background and future that would be further enhanced and promoted by having its silos painted. Depicting Kapunda's unique story on our silos by an internationally renowned mural artist would, according to the research, strengthen our local identity, tourism, and therefore the local economy through increased business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Danny. Councillors, are there any questions? Thanks, Councillor Collin.
Yeah, what does the owner think?
That's something we're currently discussing with them. I understand they've only just acquired it fairly recently, I think. So I'm hoping perhaps to submit this presentation to them and hopefully see if they would be on board for something that may happen.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Thanks for this presentation. It's really interesting. You mentioned there's no maintenance cost involved in the future. How structurally sound are these silos, and are they not? I mean, are the owners potentially want to bulldoze them, or they might fall in on its own, or whatever if they're not used to it? Do you know anything? Because maintenance would be a big thing if people have to make sure they don't fall in.
I don't really know at this stage, just from the proposal that Juddy Roller sent me. It was just a few lines basically stating that not much maintenance is required. I guess that would probably mean mostly cleaning it, I would say. Yeah.
Further questions, councillors?
Yeah, if I may,
Councillor
through
Beale?
you, yeah, Danny, or even the officers, what's the potential for grant funding for this sort of operation?
Byron, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, I think it's probably eligible for a range of funding programs. There's sort of state government arts funds that vary from time to time. Sometimes they sort of max out at about $15,000, but they have done larger projects up to about $80,000 through those departments. There's also SA Country Arts that have grants available to a lesser amount. And I know other silo art projects interstate have sort of tapped into things like drought funding from sort of community programs, as well as, you know, economic development type infrastructure funds as well. So it would be eligible for a range of sort of grant programs that come up from time to time. So it sort of just depends on what the outcome of a particular grant program is at that point in time.
Anything further, councillors? Well, if not, thank you so much, Danny and Maxine. I think the option of allowing the community to have some say is absolutely first class. I think you'll find it might even reach towards what you're proposing there anyway. But I think getting out amongst the community and having the community have some ownership in this, we've found as a council, every time we've looked for community ownership of a project, it's worked particularly well. And the Greenock example just recently is a classic example of that. But this is a wonderful opportunity for us. As a chamber, we've talked about it for a long time about, so many people contacting council about the silos. When are you going to do it? All of these things. And now it looks like there's a breath of wind there that's yet the sails flying. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, and we really appreciate the presentation and all the work you do around the town also. It's brought this town alive in so many different ways, certainly for our visitors. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make another question? If I'm
Certainly.
Yeah, I was originally at the Wallaroo silos, and they have a show, a light show.
Okay.
That runs for about half an hour. Was that been looked at? I mean, probably run off on the steel silo. Has that been looked at?
They do that at Corn as well. It works well.
Technology these days, projection, zoom art and things like that. Definitely working.
Thank you, Councillor Bill. Anything further, councillors? If not, once again, thank you. No, we'll talk to you again soon. Councillors, just before we move on, I would like to get permission to bring item 18.1 . Okay, I'm not confused. And to bring 18.1 forward, as we have a presentation tonight in our Drovers Encounter, and rather than have our visitors that have come a fair way to be part of this, have to wait for the whole meeting to be completed. If we could bring that matter forward till at 6 o'clock, when we anticipate they will be here. Would that be acceptable to the elected body? If so, could I have a mover that we do that? Councillor,
Thank you through the chair. At 6 o'clock, when you do bring it, we'll put the motion then to bring it forward at 6 o'clock is probably best placed rather than bringing it forward now. So
I
close
was
to
asked to preempt it. We're going to do it.
yeah, just I think it was to preempt and advise the elected members that there's people coming at 6 o'clock tonight, and to have that then. And when they do come and it comes 6 o'clock, then we can bring that item forward with a mover and second. It'd be fantastic. Thank you, Mayor Bill.
Yep, no problem. Everyone comfortable with that? At 6 o'clock, or when our guests arrive, I'll make that announcement. Thanks, councillors. Thanks, Curry. Moving on to our adjourned business. This is another one that's a bit tricky for me. We adjourned our business of the Freeling Railway Reserve concept plan from the last meeting. We had a mover and we had a seconder for a motion that was put. We discussed the matter and then we had a resolution that we would that this question be asked at the next ordinary meeting of council, which is tonight. So that's where we're up to with this, councillors. We're up to going back to that motion that was amended. Now, in having said that, the people who spoke to the motion were Councillor Bill, Councillor Colin, Councillor Fabio, Councillor Nett, Councillor Michael, Councillor Simon. People who haven't spoken to the motion at this point are Councillor Ellison, Councillor Dean and Councillor Peter. The people who spoke to the amendment were Councillor Simon and Councillor Bill. So if you can remember where you are all up to with that, we can go back to that original motion or an item of business for further discussion and resolution. I think I've got that reasonably right, have I, Curry? It's a bit complicated, as you can see, councillors, but basically speaking, we're back down to motion as amended at our last council meeting, which is 13.5, the item we're talking about. So I'll open that up for discussion. Item 13.5. I won't be too hard on anyone who wants to speak to this motion. I don't think that's going to be helpful. So if you've got something to say, put your hand up and let's have a go and let's resolve this matter as quickly as we can. Would someone like to start the ball rolling? Councillor Nanette?
I'm not interested in the money to be spent in the Freeling Woodshed. I think I made that clear last time. I don't think there's any point in that because it's a big sum of money and it's not what I particularly want. There's a avenue of tree planting. There's a few things in there that we really need to think twice about because that's a lot of money, 2.8 million. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has got any thoughts on it.
I'm just going back to the motion that was as amended that that was moved, and no, it wasn't. It's laid on the table.
It laid on the table.
To be raised at this meeting. That's correct, Councillor Lane. You've raised some detail there about a further amendment. Are you saying?
I don't know.
Didn't she say she's not supporting it? Is it?
I'm not supporting it the way it is, no.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. That's about a weekend.
No one wants to speak to it.
See, the only people who have spoken to this motion as amended are Councillor Simon and Councillor Bill. Councillor Allison, Councillor Dean and Councillor Peter have not spoken, nor has, Councillor Collin must have spoken because he moved a motion and it was seconded by Councillor Michael. So that makes sense. That's correct, yeah, you did. No, and Councillor Michael seconded that motion to raise this discussion here. So you haven't spoken to this motion. That's what I'm getting confused at here. It's not telling me that. Harry, can you fight my battle for me? It's getting confusing who's spoken, who hasn't, and what they're speaking about.
That's okay. So at the meeting, there was a motion put, and the speakers to that motion were Councillor Bill, Councillor Collin, Councillor Fabio, Councillor Lynette, Councillor Michael, Councillor Simon. There was then an amendment. Councillor Simon and Councillor Bill spoke to that amendment.
Yep.
And then the amendment was put to as a motion,
Yes.
brought in, which you can see now here on screen. Then there was the formal motion to adjourn the item.
That's right.
So now the item is here to be received. So technically, the three people that haven't spoken to it can now speak to it, and then you will put the motion.
Yep.
To see if anyone wants to go ahead with it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I can understand that. Can everybody around the chamber understand that?
Councillor Allison, Councillor Dean and Councillor Peter have not spoken to the motion.
Councillor Dean.
Just, this is putting, the motion is talking about putting a concept plan out to public consultation.
That's correct.
It's got some elements in it that Councillor Lynette not that comfortable with because of the cost. But the concept is going out to public consultation, so we should have more than just one opinion on it. We put out to public consultation, we will have that. So I'm happy with it like this because nothing's set in concrete, and we have the ability at some later stage to decide if a particular item is too expensive. If so, we can not do it. But at least if you put it out there with a fairly ambitious concept plan, it gives everyone opportunity to have a contribution to it. And from there, we can take the next step. So I'm not too fussed about whether something's in or not in at this stage. So I'm very happy with it as it is.
Would you be happy to move that way, Councillor Dean? Excuse me? Has it?
Yeah, it already has been moved.
Okay. Okay. I'm just not seeing it there, that's all. Anyway, if it's been moved, and was it by Councillor Allison? Who moved it?
Through the chair, it was moved last meeting by Councillor Fabio and seconded by Councillor Dean. The amendment, probably a different story, don't need to go into, but was moved and seconded. So I think that leaves Councillor Allison, Councillor Peter, as Councillor Fabio was the mover. He has the right to speak again once everyone else has finished.
We went through that initial motion. Then the amendment was put by Councillor Simon and seconded by Councillor Bill. That was amendment to the motion. Then that became the motion. That was the motion as amended, which we're talking about down the bottom of page 6. That's the one I thought we're talking about right now, voting on right now. Is that correct? Okay. All right, councillors, if there's no more to say on that, we've had a mover and a second. Councillor Simon?
I'm just have a question or maybe a comment that we do have a report for information 12.1 in our agenda, which sort of explains a bit more about this. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that, and maybe I don't know if we need to do this in one hit or something. It talks about what public consultation does and and it compares it with the outcome at the town centre here in Capon and all that sort of stuff. So this report seems to be connected to what we're talking about right now. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that.
Okay, so you're happy with that? What was your motion, first place? So, okay, I've got a motion there. I have a mover and a seconder. Any further comments, councillors? If not, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Right. Thanks, councillors. I'm sorry for any confusion there. It just got a little bit untidy because we carried a motion over that was amended motion over, and it gets a bit difficult. We go through our action items now on page 8, or beginning on page 8. Anything you would like to discuss from the matters outlined in that on page 8 or page 9?
Please.
Councillor Simon?
Yes, I do have a couple on page 9, that is. So starting with the historic Angleville Bridge, and it talks about the City of Playford will be presenting to the elected members to make a decision on the best long-term option. I did look at the agenda and it's in confidentiality. Do you know why that might be?
It was in Playford's confidential minutes.
Tonight's meeting, it's in the confidential section of the agenda, so I just wondered why that might be.
Thank you. Through the chair, the Playford Council put it in confidence, similar to what we did, because it related to another council and commercial agreements between us that have yet to be decided, of course.
The other one, Councillor Simon?
Yes, I have two more actually. Oh, sorry. It's a community bus service, and it says that, and that's 4 months ago. It says the Department for Infrastructure will shortly commence a detailed review of public transport. So I just wondered if and what happened in those 4 months.
Thank you, Pepper. If you could take that one on for us.
No worries. I haven't had any further updates from Department of Infrastructure and Transport on it. I have reached out to them this week actually to see if I've just had a bounce back saying they're on leave and due back next week. But yeah, following that up to see where their review is at. Yeah.
Thank you, Pepper. Anything further?
There's one
Councillor
more.
Simon?
Is the review of roadworks, building and maintenance programs. It says procurement process revisited bid request for proposal closing 15/11, so that's about 10 days ago. I just wondered how that went, if he had a good bunch of people to wanting to do that work for us.
Thank you. Through the chair, given we're currently going through the process, I can't provide too much detail, but we have received some responses that are currently being assessed.
Thank you, Megan. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Fabio?
Yeah, just back on page 8, through the chair, 15th of August, preliminary engagement with the new silo owners underway to discuss development potential. Have they indicated at all what their intention is with the silos? Is it just to remain as a landmark, or have they got plans to revitalise it and start using it again as a commercial premises?
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Byron.
Yeah, through the chair, it's had a couple of chats with them today just to articulate the zoning and what that allows. So as I understand it, they're having regard to that and they're thinking about what they can do with the site and develop it. But I certainly think they have intentions of getting a return on their investment.
Thank you, Corin. Further questions, councillors? Page 10 next, and page 11. We'll do two at a time. Nothing on page 10 or 11. We move to section 9 then of our agenda. Now, this is where I might need some help from Nigel here. The recommendation at the top of the page, recommendation 1, says that the agenda reports and minutes of the meeting of the Light Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting held Tuesday, 12th of November, be received. Now, would someone like to move that way? Thanks, councillor Lynn. Would someone like to second that? Thanks, councillor Michael. Any further comment or questions? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thanks, councillor. So the minutes and reports have been received. The second recommendation. Now, do you want to take over, Nigel? Because I think you might be better at it than me.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I'm not sure I'll be better at it, but I'll try. Just for clarity, to explain that we had two audit and risk committee meetings, the main one and then a special one. At the first committee meeting, and this is the item you've got up on the screen, 7.1 dealt with annual financial statements. We only received an interim clearance from the audit at that meeting, and therefore there was an amended resolution went forward that said bring to a special meeting of the committee, which was held a week later, the final financial statements. And at that point, we got full audit clearance. So I'm just explaining that item 7.1 before you now is not approving the financial statements. That's just a direction to finalise the financial statements for the special meeting. So with that, you can proceed as normal with the with recommendation 2.
Okay. Right. Councillors, are there any items there that you'd like to withdraw, 1 or 2 or both? If not, I'll put the recommendation, which is recommendation 2, that the reports and recommendations of the meeting of the Light Regional Council Audit and Risk Committee meeting held Tuesday the 12th of November 2024, numbered 1 to 3, as listed below, be adopted. I have someone to move that way. Councillor Michael, someone like to second that? Councillor Dean, any further comments or questions, councillors? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Nigel, for your help there. That's very helpful, I can tell you. Yeah. I might ask you also, Nigel, now you're standing there and looking splendid, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about this next item.
What we'd be asking you for here is that before considering the special Audit and Risk Committee meeting, you'd need to bring forward item 13.5 from the supplementary. 13.5 on the supplementary is the final audit report. Came late in the piece, so we could only just get it in the agenda. You should be considering the final audit report and approving that before you consider the annual financial statements, just to get that in order. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you, Nigel.
So you could bring forward 13.5.
We're looking at bringing forward 13.5, councillors, if I have a mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Bill and Councillor Michael. All those in favour? So we'll bring forward 13.5 so we can continue with this discussion on this particular item.
And Mayor Bill, just as a bit of a guide for those looking for it in the agendas, we're talking about page 111.
That's right.
Of the supplementary agenda will have the recommendation from the auditors, which is the audit opinion, which is an unmodified audit opinion. So audit clearance.
That's in the attachment, of course.
Correct. And the recommendations from that report are on the screen, Mayor Bill.
Okay, 13.5, councillors. Do we have any questions or comments in relation to that matter? Councillor Collin?
I'm just going by the auditor's recommendation. There were a few that I read 5 or 6, but one that stood out to me was the overhead allocation. And I and others have asked quite a few times about how to put wages to capital items. And I see they're recommending to do that. But I thought we were told we couldn't do it. So how could we do it in the future? So all indirect wages and associated are put to capital projects.
Through you, Mayor Bill. The what gets costed to the capital projects now are the direct wages, supervision wages, and also specialist staff. So if you've got a project manager and engineer, they will get booked to those costs in terms of standard rates and machinery based on higher rates. What they're talking about is back office.
I know what they're talking.
So with people within that area that would be indirectly working on those projects. It can be relatively simply dealt with once we get an assessment. So we'd have to do a survey of the amount of time that Megan's staff are working indirectly on that sort of work. I suspect it to be fairly minor, and it might just relate to a small tweaking, possibly, I say possibly, of the hourly rate that we're charging the staff out. Well, at the moment, when we charge at an hourly rate, to keep it simple, we keep the rate the same. And we're already built in a little bit of a contingency that might actually be covering these indirect costs. So I wouldn't expect to see a dramatic change in terms of the costs of the projects. And the other thing
because I think you're missing the point. I think what I'm trying to say is I totally understand what you're saying, but to know what the cost of a project is, you need to allocate all costs to it, and indirect wages have to be put to it. So what they're saying to us is that we should be doing that, so we know what the staff time spent on any one project is. Otherwise, it's just, you can't depreciate it, you can't capitalise it, you can't do anything with it. It's just an expenditure. So you've got a $2 million wage, it just gets paid. No one actually knows what job it's allocated to. And I'm sure in the works program, it probably is anyway. But if you're looking at other things, discretionary spending, where you just got at some project where the money's just going with no check or balance, which they're suggesting we should have one. So I think that, this is something we should really strongly consider, and maybe could I move a motion that we actually pursue this? Is that right, the right to do that as a?
Oh, you're allowed to move a motion, Councillor Collin, if you wish.
Can I just help Mayor Bill? In the report, there's already a management comment. By adopting the audit report, you'd be accepting the management comment, which is that we will evaluate it. And if it's material, we'll implement it. But we're talking about, as I said before, a fairly minor amount of administrative staff in the area. I'd be most surprised if it's going to be material. We're already costing all of the staff that are working directly and indirectly onto the project through hourly rates.
Or how much have we spent? How much staff time has been spent on Droves Encounter? Just for example, how much staff time has been spent on Droves Encounter? If you know where it's going, so that's one big project we've done. What staff has been spent on Bunyip 2? The two massive projects, and what's it cost us with back office?
Councillor, neither of those projects are costed. We're talking about capital projects. Neither are a capital project.
Yeah, Councillor Collin, I don't think we should be telling Nigel how to do his job. I think that's a fair comment. It was a question that's a very difficult one to answer, and it's probably not relevant to what he was presenting before. I mean, how off the top of his head is he going to give you the costing of Droves Encounter, for example? How's he going to do that? Sorry. Have anything further?
If I could
Councillor Michael?
maybe just try and draw this out a bit, because I think we've sort of talked before about how do we attribute the cost of projects and initiatives that the council does. And I think what I've struggled with some of the information that we are given in the past is that, which goes to sort of Councillor Collins' point, it's very difficult to ascertain what some of these things are costing on an individual basis, because in the financial statement, it'll have, you know, salaries, wages, whatever, $9-10 million, whatever the figure is. But beyond that, there's no way to determine how we're spending that money on those projects. So is that this recommendation, this observation, is that speaking to that, or is that speaking to the fact that when we're depreciating, say, Bethel Road, that we're not accounting for some of the indirects? Are they two different things? Are we talking about two different things?
Councillor, I think we're talking about two different things. They're simply talking about when, for example, a road is constructed, how do we arrive at the standard prices that we attribute to it when our staff work on those roads. And I was trying to say before, I doubt whether their recommendation of including some back office staff in that is going to make much difference. But in terms of your question about other projects, the approach normally taken is that we open a job cost to keep those costs. And a good example were the ward projects. So individual job costs were open for those so that costs could be attributed to it. Administrative staff are not normally included in that attribution. It's usually the direct costs. We haven't opened a job cost for Drovers Encounter specifically, but that's doesn't have ongoing non-admin costs being attributed to it. But we certainly could and track it in the way we track other job costs.
Just a question, why wouldn't we have done that in the past? Why wouldn't you have a big project such as that? Why wouldn't we retract it?
The unusual nature of that one has been that it's been reports to council that have been tracking over time the purchases have gone into it. And until such time as you proceed with the project, you wouldn't normally open a job cost for it.
But it's as soon as you start the project, it's a job cost. As you said, the folder's open. So, you know, there must be some, why can't you attribute it to like Bunyip 2? So then we actually know what physical, you know, what we're spending.
Most of the costs you're talking about are land purchase investment or preparation for a project that may or may not proceed.
Exactly. But at least you know when it doesn't proceed that how much money was spent.
Thanks, Councillor Collins. I'm going to try and work out where we're up to.
On the screen there, that is, if I can have a question.
Councillor Simon?
I think you mentioned that we could open a folder like that and actually track projects that are not just the capital projects, but other projects as well, which I think that's what Councillor Colvin and Councillor Michael are trying to do. Is there a way that we, again, could move a motion saying that's what we should be doing? Could we just track these projects anyway, even though they're not capital projects? Is that possible?
Certainly possible, Council.
Well, then I would propose a motion to do that. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe other councillors can help me how to formulate that. But I think it would be, and I think we've asked for this many times before, be very, very helpful to know what we're spending on preparing for projects before they actually become capital projects. Because even bigger projects like Roseworthy, the whole Roseworthy development plan amendments, and obviously 5 shillings and on and on and on it goes. We never really knew what these things cost until they become a project, Bunyip 1, Bunyip 2, and so on. So I would propose, if it's possible, a motion to somehow start tracking that, and hopefully even sort of backtracking if you can.
Well, you need to word that to help the.
Yeah, look, if I can lend some assistance, because I sort of agree with the sentiment, and I guess I've raised it before. So I think with future financial statements, it would be beneficial to receive, if there is a job costing report, Nigel, that shows the cost of direct and, to the extent possible, indirect costs for those projects to accompany future financial reports as provided to council from time to time. Yeah. Job costing that shows the cost of direct and, to the extent possible, indirect costs on projects of a strategic or capital nature. Strategic or, thanks, Corey, yep, all good. Capital nature to accompany financial reports or statements. As provided to council from time to time.
Through the chair, thanks, councillor Collins.
Yeah, look, I'm not, with respect to councillor Collin, I'm not familiar with that term, so I'd be, yeah, I'll leave it to you to comment on that further. I'm reasonably happy with that, but if you've got.
Councillor Collins?
It's just that they mention here that you have a policy, so you have a full cost attribution policy in place. So would that be it's a policy rather than a.
Through the chair, it would seem ahead of this, we've got some fundamental changes to systems that would be required, and the manner in which we account for time, which I think is what elected members are sort of indicating here. To give an example, I don't account or fill out a timesheet, neither do the general management team. So firstly, seeking those changes so that their time was accounted for and put to specific projects will require a change. My understanding is that, as Nigel has explained, there's a fair bit of the overheads that are already embedded into hourly rates. And my suggestion is we bring a report back so you can get some visibility of what that is first, ahead of starting to make changes to our accounting system and the way in which we operate as an administration. That's going to be a hell of a lot easier than us implementing another business change ahead of the many other business changes that we're really trying to implement at the moment.
Yeah, Bill, could I also add a bit of clarity in terms of the discussion that what you're describing is what would be known as management accounting. Management accounting produces costs of things. What you see before you in terms of financial statements, annual financial statements, is financial accounting. It doesn't deal with management accounting. Normally what would be happening is that the management accounting side would be brought in to your reporting that accompanies your budget reviews.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, councillor Collins. No. Well, at this particular point, I'll have a motion on the screen.
Oh.
I have a motion on the screen. Do I have someone who'd like to second that motion?
I do, since this has become my motion, I do, because I personally don't really understand enough. I only know what I want to achieve, but I understand that obviously Richard knows much better how to achieve that. So I don't want to do anything that's going to be complicated and cumbersome for you guys. That's really not what I want to achieve. That's really not what I want to do. I want quite the opposite. I'd like to make it as easy as possible, but I know what I want to achieve. So I suspect that this motion is not a good idea, and I would follow Richard's lead in doing this differently. I just want to make sure I want to be understood what we want to achieve, and I think we all want to achieve the same thing. And if you can help us to do that, then I'll gladly follow your lead. And if this is not the way, and I think I understand that this is probably not the way, then I'm gladly retract this motion or cancel it or whatever the official way is to not do this motion. However, I want to make sure that we do proceed in a way that we will be able to, in the future and possibly backwards, understand what the exact costs are of all these projects that we are doing, independent if they're capital or not, or if they're getting done or not, or whatever. We just need to know what people do and which costs are attributed to what projects. I think that's a basic thing for a business to know.
Yeah,
So-
thank you for that, Councillor Simon. I think that's very, very noteworthy. And thanks, Councillor Collin and Councillor Michael, also for input into this, because it is important. And I think what you've heard our CEO say, the implications to this is not so simple as just one project, and we're going to cost that out to the last bag of lollies we bought. This goes across the whole organisation in everything we do. I think that's what Nigel was trying to outline. It's not that simple, but I think if Richard could bring a report back to council on the very thing that you're looking for in these major projects in particular, that we have a breakdown, that we know exactly where those funds are being distributed. And I think that's reasonable and fair. And that's, I think, what you're really trying to get at. And I think Councillor Collin was saying, you're trying to get the breakdown of major events, not a wholesale change in the way we do business as a council, because that's going back to the Wood Stone Age and try and put all those sort of things together. And we'd have to have our accounting staff to be doubled to be able to achieve the outcomes that we're looking for.
I don't think that's quite right, Bill, but the auditor was the one that's brought it up. I've just brought up something the auditor's brought up. So, you know, I didn't bring this to the chamber.
Oh, no,
I'd just like to say, if Simon, if you want to make it your motion to ask for a report, I'd second that. And then we have a formal motion asking for a report. I'd think that would be,
And do you want to be more specific though within the report that you're looking for? Not a wholesale change of the way we do business. You're looking for a report on the breakdown of major events and the cost factors. Is that what we're trying to say?
If I may, Mayor Bill,
Yeah,
just
sir.
to respond to that, I just want to respond to some of the narrative here. So Nigel said we're already doing this to some extent, right? So we're not upending the world. We're making some changes to account to the extent possible for some of the indirect costs and allocating them to things like, you know, Drovers Encounter, or some other strategic project. So we're already doing this. I understand Nigel's point about the distinction between different bits of financial information. All I want to see is what we're spending on some of these things. So, I mean, I'd be supportive of a report that says this is how we're going to do it, to Councillor Simon and Collins' point. But I don't think we should be thinking, from what I've already heard, that this is some massive change to what we're already doing. It's just the information. It'd be great to get that information.
Thanks, Councillor Michael. Well, we've got a motion up there and we've got a mover.
I think I did withdraw this motion, but I would like a motion with a report to get to where we need to go, except on the fly, I can't word this properly right here, right now. So let's do that. Right, and then we'll just withdraw this motion and we'll move on.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable and fair. Yeah. Happy with that? To put something up toward the next meeting?
There's a matter. So.
Yeah, there is a matter up on the yeah, we've got a mover.
Yes.
It hasn't been withdrawn, it hasn't been seconded. You want to withdraw that? Thanks, Councillor Simon. Oh, just to do the dignified thing for Councillor Simon, he did ask to withdraw it. So we could withdraw it. Otherwise it goes in our minutes. And he doesn't want it in the minutes because he wants to withdraw it. I'm quite sure we should be able to do that. Right, councillor, so we get back to where we were. We have a mover and a second for the recommendation 13.5, councillors. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thanks, councillors. Now we've got 9, we go back to 9.2. And the recommendation there is about a third of the way down the page, up on our screen there. Do we have someone move that way? And so, thanks, Councillor Ellison. Someone like to second that? Oh, Councillor Michael. Any further discussion or comments, councillors? If not, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. I think we're moving on now to. I thought we did that. We're on to recommendation 2 now, councillors. Do I have someone move that recommendation? Councillor Michael, someone like to second that? Councillor Ellison, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thanks, councillors. Oh. Point 1, that's right. Councillors, I'd like to seek leave of the meeting to bring 18.1 forward. We have some special guests tonight to talk with us in relation to Drovers Encounter, but this will need to be in confidential session. So I'd like someone to move that first we move into confidential session. I'll bring forward first. Councillor Michael, Councillor Ellison, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. So 18.1 is on our screen shortly. And now I just need someone to move. We move in a confidential session. Councillor Michael, Councillor Ellison, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Yep. Just I haven't got all the names of everybody here, but not now. It's a good welcome to our guests too. Great to see you again, Ben. And when we can, I might get you, if you don't mind, to just introduce the other gentlemen. So the new councillors in particular might not have met them before, and there's maybe one there that I haven't either. So yeah, a big welcome to our meeting, and we're looking forward to our discussions and your presentation. But if you wouldn't mind, Ben, just introducing the other gentlemen to us. Thank you.
Sam Morris. Well done on the team for
delivering
the good roads up there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Collin. That's very, very pleasing to hear. I'm sure that can be passed on to Jason and his team as well. Anything further on this report, councillors? If not, there's a recommendation on the bottom of page 18 that the council receives the infrastructure reports. Thanks, Councillor Bill. And Councillor Michael seconded that. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on now for reports for information. This is 12.1, talking about the Freeling Reserve Concept Plan implementation process. I think we've done that. I think we talked about that earlier. The CEO's monthly report there. Busy occasion as usual. Richard, anything you'd like to raise or any questions, councillors, in relation to that? If not, we'll move on to the temporary roads closures for the Remembrance Day memorial services. I think we've done that. 12.4, the Ross Creek Bridge intersection. Another report here from Jason Norman's team. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Michael?
Just, I guess, a comment on that. When I came up to the radio on Saturday, Apple Maps diverted me along Hawkers Creek Road and various other people. So I got to enjoy the journey through there. So it definitely needs a bit of work. But yeah, good report. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Michael, well done.
Just
We've got 12.5 now,
Oh.
councillors.
Okay.
Oh, councillor Simon, sorry.
I was just wondering about the Hawkers Creek Road. It says it probably costs about the upper end of the $240,000 to do, and it says that we don't really have that in our funding. So what's the likelihood to get that funded, and how fast could that happen? All that sort of stuff. Because it seems like that's something that Councillor Fabio wanted to have addressed fairly quickly, and this sounds like, well, it's a bit too much and we can't really afford it. So how can we square that circle?
Megan, you able to comment on that?
Certainly. Thank you through the chair. Within the report, there's a number of different options of how we could fund it. And that's ultimately up to the council to decide how they wish to spend those funds, and happy to speak to elected members if they wish to discuss that further. Essentially, it's not in the program though, as we explained, because it hasn't come up as a priority for the next 4 years. If that's something elected members would like to have changed, we can talk about that maybe when we review the next 4-year road program, or by other means.
So at this point in time, it's not funded, but the council could resolve to fund it at a quarterly review.
Just to clarify, no, at a review of the works program for the next 4 years at the annual preparation for the capital works program.
Right. Comfortable with that, councillors? Councillor Peter, do you have a question? Oh, Councillor Colin?
Yeah, a couple of things. I'd say it's going to cost $250,000, but I think, is there any way you can get a grant for an old bridge, like to maintain that bridge? Because someone's going to slip, the corrugations on that are dangerous, as Councillor Michael is suggesting. And if someone spits off and smacks the bridge, then you're going to have to repair the bridge. And the other thing I also don't quite agree with, it says it's a low daily traffic count. That road gets used a lot. So I'm surprised that is a low count. It says in the report. So, and if you spend 170, you're going to save money in the long run, because it's those corrugations have to get graded out, and that road is graded more often than others, as we all know, because the grader's out there a fair bit to fix up. So it would actually make us some savings if we were to move the funding forward from a future, because it's 4 years out, isn't it? So we could move it. And you know, is there any possibility of getting a grant because it's a heritage bridge?
Councillor Megan?
Through the chair, the bridge itself has actually just recently been repaired. So if we were to get a grant, that would be for the bridge, not necessarily the road surface. We can.
Come around the corner, if someone's going to get smacked straight through into that bridge, so it's not much point fixing the bridge up and then leaving it longer to a collision because you've got cars down the road.
Yeah, and one of the options provided is to seek grant funding, so we can look into further grant funding.
Megan, just one question then. How would we go about applying for grant funding for that road? What are the sources would we get it from?
We can review the additional sources of grant funding. You've got I keep changing the name, heavy vehicles, the bridge renewal program.
Yep, right.
That we can go through. But we're not confident we'll be successful with that, because it has to meet priority requirements. Yeah,
because within our road scheme, I'm certainly on side with the other councillors here on this. I think it's really important that bridge needs to be maintained and retained and everything else. We've put a lot of money into keeping it as it is and repairing it, bringing it up to date. And now we've got a road around it that's damn right dangerous. And so that bridge might not survive either in the future. And I don't think anyone who's driven around there would certainly want to do it more than once if they didn't have to. So maybe we look at trying to fund it from our own resources somehow, which would mean probably dropping another road off somewhere else. But that would be up to the elected body to choose that. But at least that's an option, isn't it, really? If we could look at it in those terms, if council this one up 2 pegs because it's, you know, it's dangerous.
I think through the chair, we'll be having our workshop or briefing or a session in February that will deal with our financial components. We'll bring this in, we'll highlight it. I mean, at the end of the day, currently we're putting about $8.6 million into asset renewal and upgrade. And I say that and upgrade, there's $1 million of upgrade, which is effectively eroding your renewal program. In other words, you're not funding your renewals properly if you want to keep going at upgrades. So we bring it all in, we throw all the projects, and the elected body will, you know, be able to select from that and determine whether it wishes to borrow money for the future, or try and pay debt down and get its finances back under control. So,
yeah,
and that'll be for February.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I hope that sort of gives us some sort of relief. Something might happen.
I'd just like to make a comment through the chair. Thank you for the very comprehensive report that's been generated. It's certainly given all the information that I asked for, and I think it puts us in a good position to be able to make a sound and calculated assessment and judgment going forward. I'd take the fact that there is considerable amount of money required to do the works, and I don't want to take away from any other projects which I deem would probably be equally as important, and I'm sure other people have been waiting, you know, just as long. But certainly, if we could, you know, if we could put the groundwork in the coming year or two to at least program it for future works, whether it be 2, 3, 4 years down the track, but at least to have some sort of end date on it, to know that at that time it will be done. I'd be happy with that, certainly. So, thank you once again.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Fabio. I agree with you. It's an excellent report. It spells it out pretty clearly, and all the facts are there. So we've got plenty of information to make a decision on in the future. Our reports for information is still the budget review additional tables. Any questions in relation to that particular item, councillors? If not, there's a recommendation down the bottom of page 5 that the reports for information be received and the contents herein noted by council. Someone like to move that way? Councillor Len? Someone like to second that? Councillor Dean, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Reports for decision. This is a report regarding the changes of approval delegations for staff administration. There's a recommendation about a third of the way down the page. Are there any comments, councillors, or questions in relation to the recommendation? I'll have a mover. Move Councillor Michael. Recommendation second, Councillor Fabio. Would you like to talk to the motion, Councillor Michael?
No, I think I understand it. Thanks, Neville.
Councillor Fabio? No. Any comments or questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? The motion's carried. We move on now to our White Regional Council annual report, and well done to Caitlin for all her work in preparing this document. Something we need to do, and there's a report halfway down the page. If someone would like to comment on that or move that recommendation. Thanks, Councillor Lynn. Would you like to speak to it? You usually do. Would someone like to second the motion? Councillor Bill, would you like to speak to that? Are there any questions or comments, councillors?
No.
Excuse me?
No,
Oh, age shall not weary them. Am I in it? Oh, I haven't seen it yet. Oh no. Oh no. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried. Thank you, councillors. 13.3, the policy revocation conflict resolution procedure. I think this is just a rather a minor change. Is that correct, Kari? Did anyone have any questions in relation to this matter? I thought it was fairly straightforward. If there's no questions, do I have someone like to move that recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Dean. Like to speak on that? Someone like to second that? Councillor Fabio, like to speak on that? No. All those in favour? Those against, that one's carried. The Community Grants Program. Thank you, Kyron, for this report. Are there any questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Michael.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. And I agree, this is a good report and a good recommendation. But what I would say is that I'd like council to consider exercising some discretion, if it has it, to fund the out of school care application. I think on its face, it's a proposal that has merit. I accept that we're contributing in some way to an asset owned and operated by the state government, but where our contribution is 20% of the total cost of that project, it's a project that my understanding is needed in Kapunda, and I think if we can set aside that element of the assessment in the interest of the community, I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Michael. A lot of children would go hungry if it wasn't there. I know that. Any further questions or comments, councillors?
So I guess to follow on from that, can I amend this recommendation, or does it need to go to a vote first? With the amendment, sorry. Yeah. So I'm happy to move the motion with an amendment.
With an amendment
that means that we fund applicant 2 for the amount that they've requested.
Mr. Mayor, can we do that? That would be my question. Can we do it?
Just through the chair, I wonder for a probably greater accuracy, is this a dot point 4 where it says approves the allocation of the grant program funding for 24-25 that is in variance to the eligibility criteria? Do you know what I mean? And Kyron has just said, would you be happy if we remove the eligibility criteria from point 3, and then we just simply will say it's applicant 1, applicant 2, basically, and we'll leave it at that.
Slot applicant 2 in there.
They have applicant 2 school, so they just put the information back in.
We've got to go. It wouldn't be too much. Councillors, I have a mover and I think I did have a seconder. Did I have a seconder for that? I think I did. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Collins. Everyone's comfortable with that now, with the addition of the out of school care project? If so, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thanks, councillors, and thanks, Councillor Michael, for picking up on that. There. Is it?
Yep, so we've already done that.
13.5, we've completed that one, councillors. And Nigel, thank you. 13.5. Here we go, 13.6, we have a customer service charter.
Yep, so just see if there's an update.
Are there any updates to this report? Thank you, Pepper. No updates? Report there, councillors. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll put that recommendation. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Bill? Move. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Bill? No. Someone like to second that? Councillor Dean? Any questions, councillors, or comments? If not, I'll put the recommendation. Comment?
I would like to make a comment. I mean, I do agree. I mean, the update is much clearer and is a lot longer than the original. But on the face of it, that the original one says everything that we should be doing. So I'm not 100% clear because it says be open, be transparent, be courteous, it already says everything that we should be doing. So I'm not 100% clear on how the new one's going to actually improve this. I mean, I understand there's some details because we got websites now on Facebook and everything else, but I'm just sort of wondering how words going to change behavior. Because in reality, the original one, if that would be followed by heart and everything, we already would have a perfect system because everybody would be the perfect thing that's expected of them, and we wouldn't have any issues. So I'm just wondering if somebody needs to go deeper than just changing the words and then hoping something's going to change. So I'm just wondering how we're going to follow that up.
Yeah, through the chair, don't disagree, but I think going through a review process and then going through a process where you're then communicating it and embedding it back into the organisation, I think is just a good process to go through. So really, you're not getting anything new. You're simply reinforcing this and having a program around that.
I think one thing that it demonstrates, though, is councillors are listening at least, and not just taking things for granted. The customer service charter was part of the survey that went out. And I noted in here that the main reasons for this dissatisfaction were due to the customer perception of no action and lack of response or communication from council. That was an issue that the community raised, and it's been addressed by an amendment to the service charter. That's right. I'll put that recommendation, councillors. All those in favour? Those against? And that's carried. Thanks, councillors. Moving now to 13.7. The consent to deposit a plan of division, etc. Does anyone have any questions or comments in relation to this matter? If not, there's a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Michael, would someone like to second that? Councillor Allison? Like to comment on that, councillor Ali? All those in favour? Those against? The matter's carried. Thirteen point eight, the dog park considerations. I have a recommendation about halfway down the page. Any comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Fabio? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you go first.
No, my concern about it a little bit, I mean, dog parks are great, but if we've got to employ a full-time employee for 120,000, that's about 50 houses worth of rates a year just going in one dog, like who looks picks up the dog shit. Excuse me. And to my mind, that seemed a little bit extravagant. So perhaps we might be able to fill me in here. Perhaps he will do 2 dog parks, but.
Yeah, vexed question, councillor Bill. Any further comment or questions, councillor?
Yeah.
Councillor Fabio and
Agree.
Councillor Lynn next.
Just my point is in relation to, my question is in relation to point 2 of the recommendation. I'm just a bit unsure as to why it refers to the chief executive officer to consider whether council ought to receive a new dog park or not. Wouldn't that in fact be the responsibility of the elected members to vote on that or not?
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, it's a good point, but I think the way we've taken this is that we currently receive playgrounds without bringing them back into the chamber each time a land division is done. So what we're sort of seeing here is, in the commentary that's come back to us, is that developers are envisaging providing this level of service. So what we're saying to the elected members is we're not going to see 30 dog parks throughout our developed areas, but you might see 30 small playgrounds, or of varying sizes. But it's really just to put it on the table to say we're going to be seeing these things, we're going to assess them, but what we don't want to do is bring them into the chamber for it to be a decision here. It really should be a delegated decision. So we're using our judgment as to where they'll be, and that's really the planning team is doing that in their everyday job. But for us in this council, this is our first. So we're just sort of pointing it out that we're going to start seeing a different level of service that the developers are wanting to provide for that growing community.
Thank you, Richard. Further questions or comments, councillor Lynn?
Today I met a lady that came into the opportunity shop, and she came to Freeling for an interview as I don't know what the heck it was, a dog control thing, I think so. I don't know. She said she was coming for an interview, and I just wondered what she was coming for. Is it the dog?
Yeah, through the chair, I can take that one, Mayor Bill. Yeah, no, thank you for the question. Look, one of our officers will be taking some leave, and we're looking at some relief cover. And the lady involved was coming to have a chat with Brandon and I about the type of cover we were looking at. So not a new role, it's some assistance to maintain service levels.
And so if somebody's taking leave, will she be a permanent, or like come in on odd days, or what?
So through the chair, we'll be looking to sustain the service. So we're probably looking at covering at least weekdays through that.
Okay, all right. Not going to cost us more money.
Well, yeah, there is a cost to having cover. Yes.
Oh dear. Okay.
Just have to issue more fines. That's all.
I actually don't like dog parks, and little dogs get eaten in dog parks by big dogs, and in Adelaide there's quite a big thing, and the responsibility for council to be running it and then taking the responsibility of it, I don't really I don't agree with it. So if someone came to us with a better with an option and it was brought to us and I saw the proposal, I'd support it, but I'm not going to support a loose proposal like this.
Thanks, councillor Collins. Fair comment. Councillor Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bill. I think, I agree with some of what councillor Collins saying, just noting that the council already contributes to a dog park at Clonlee. I think it would be of interest to be able to at least receive some form of report if something like this was being proposed from time to time, but to the extent that this recommendation is that the CEO triages these requests as they come in, and then, perhaps there's a report or whatever that that would be, I'd be fine with that.
Thanks, councillor Michael. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Simon?
Yeah, so I sort of agree with that sentiment. I do have, I think dog parks serve a place in the community, but for us to spend that much money, I don't think is not really balanced. So again, like if these proposals come in, if we still got to say on a specific proposal, I would like that better. So if I might say if the triage through the CEO, then that'd be fine. But if it's just a blanket, so the approval that the CEO can do whatever he wants, that wouldn't be what we would want, I suppose. So if I understand this correct, this is just obviously you don't want to come to us with everything, but if a dog park actually will be proposed, that we still would have a say in it, I think that would be important. Because I don't think nobody wants to spend $120,000 a year on somebody picking up stuff from dogs.
Thanks, councillor Simon. Well, I have a recommendation there, but I don't have anyone that's moved that at this time. I have a mover up to the recommendation. Thanks, councillor Michael. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Fabio, would you like to talk to it? Okay. Any other comments or questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Motion is lost. That's the first one tonight. 13.9 is land transfer obligations, Roseworthy Township Expansion, Roseworthy Property Proprietary Limited. Hello, Lisa. How are you this evening? Any questions in relation to this particular matter, councillors? A series of recommendations on page 19. There's obviously been quite a lot of consideration put into this report. Councillor Simon?
Yes, so this seems quite a complex matter for somebody that's not initiated in this sort of stuff. And there's about 400 pages of legal writing attached to it. So I think there's no issues with it. I just want to make sure, just for myself, so that this is really just existing deeds being transferred to a new owner without any change. There's nothing changed in the deeds or in the effect of those deeds. It's really just a changeover from the now owners of these properties to the future owner of those properties without any changes. Yeah, that's all good to me.
Lisa, would you be able to put some? Oh, okay. Oh, Corin, thank you. Can you put something around this?
Through the chair, yep, so that's correct. Council's dealt with this similar matter on several occasions with property ownership changes. And it does relate just to carrying those 4 different deeds over to the new owner. So there's a deed of assignment and assumption, which is, I guess, the legal instrument. And why the attachments are 600 pages is because we've got to attach each of the deeds that the current owners have signed up to reference them. So yeah, that's the length of the document is due to attaching those existing documents to it.
Thank you, Corin. Any further questions, councillors? Do I have a mover of this recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Collins. Seconded, Councillor Simon. Would you like to talk to that, or have we done that? Any further questions or comments, councillors? If not, put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. We're getting there. Not already there. We have questions on notice. Drovers Encounter, councillor Collin. Oh, we dealt with that one. Questions without notice. Dealt with that one. Oh, sorry, councillor Alison.
I do have a question without notice, but given the time, it may take a bit.
Oh, let's find out.
Okay, so
It's not a debate, you can't debate, you can only ask a question again, no?
yeah, so well, I would like to ask a question of the mayor, but it's a confidential question, so where I'd be asking everybody else to leave the chamber. So I'd like to move a motion then that we go into confidence. It's just confidential on my behalf.
Yeah, so just to explain, we have to have a provision to go into confidentiality, so, we'd need, well, I would need to understand what it was in regards to, so I could understand what provision it sits under.
So I'm happy to chat to you about that if we break for dinner and come back to it then.
What's it about?
Yeah, so that's okay. We got another meeting in 2 weeks' time. I can bring it up then.
Once you,
Yeah.
well, when we're having tea, just tell me.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can do that. I can have a chat to you at tea.
I've
Okay.
got thick skin.
All right.
You'll be right. So there's any other questions without notice? Thanks, Carrie, for that. Motions on notice. There's a rates policy. There's a question here from councillor Collin. A motion put that council requests the chief executive officer to schedule an elected members briefing session that can inform a revised or amended rate revenue policy. We have a mover, councillor Collin. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Michael. Would you like to speak to that, councillor Collin or councillor Michael?
Oh, no, it's pretty self-explanatory. I think that the rating policy that we went in for the last budget, I don't think was quite satisfactory, and I think we've got to do a bit of work to, as a collective, to get it, get it sorted out. And I think the sooner we do it, the better. So everyone's got an understanding of how we are to implement the rates in the future years.
Thank you for that, councillor Collin. Councillor Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bill. I guess when I read this, it sort of resonated with me pretty quickly that the process that we went about with setting the rates this year and the previous year is pretty clunky. So I think it would be good for us to look at our rating policy and see that it reflects some of the conversations that we had throughout that process, because it feels like we're sort of, we've got that policy there, but it'd be good to just, I think, give everyone some direction on it.
Yeah, thank you, councillor Michael. I have a mover and a seconder. Any further comment or questions in relation to that, councillor?
I do have a question. It probably doesn't directly relate to the motion, but that's something that I just don't really understand, and I want to please have it explained in words. Why is councillor Collin addressed as they and not him?
Excuse me.
Why is councillor Collin addressed as they and not he? It says, well, given notice that they intend to move the following motion. Shouldn't it say that he is intended to move the following motion, or he intends to move the following motion? Why is it they?
Thank you. Fair question. We have a template which we use. So when we input the data, it comes then pulls into the agenda. So we don't have to manually type and enter everything. We use they, so that otherwise maybe yourself asking a question or Councillor Lynette, we don't then have to change and manipulate that. So it's just a template that we use that it is a little bit less work for us. So
We have to do and that's why it's needed, because as soon as we begin with that, so of that.
I think
I think we're getting a bit deep.
You might be
Can we
referencing
move
the
on,
bylaws that was recently updated, but yeah, this is just a process that we run through that's a bit easier.
I have a recommendation there and I had a mover and a seconder. Any further questions in relation to the recommendation?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just through.
Councillor
Just looking at the costing if the motion is carried. Public consultation, $5,000. External consultant advice. Is that it? Are we in that deep? Is that, or aren't we just doing a review? I mean, that seems like a massive jump into the ocean.
Some of that would be done as part of our normal consultation. Anyway, like our budget consultation, because it'll go through at that. So it's probably just foreshadowing that there might be some costs, but that's probably upper limits.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see it allocated in time allocations, please.
It was 10 minutes.
No, I think it's a very good recommendation and it's probably timely. I think we've got council members now that really are interested in our rating system and how it works and to make things better for our community and for our elected body. So well done. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Dean.
I actually support the recommendation, but I'll point out that in fact last year we went through a very extensive process with lots of briefings to come up with a policy, a rating policy, which we then probably departed from when we did the budget. So therefore, obviously, although we all agreed at the time that it was the right thing to do, it wasn't. So I just hope that if we spend some time to revise that policy, that in fact we follow it. It'll be a first.
Thanks, Councillor Dean. Colin, would you like to close this debate?
Yeah, I agree with everything Dean said, but the one problem we did have last year, which was unexpected from February to June, was the high increase in land valuations, and it really changed everything quickly. So we couldn't adapt because the policy couldn't adapt. So I think we're going to have to find a way of making it a policy that can adapt, which is very difficult. I can concede that because we're not the only council having the trouble, but it's not an easy problem, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we're going to have to find ways that were better than what we did last year. And we need a structured policy that can adapt to the changing numbers, because I don't think we did it well.
Thanks, Councillor Colin. That's a fair comment. Any further questions or comments there? I don't know if we voted on this yet, did we? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Motions without notice. We don't have any of those. Yeah, I'll do it.
16.2.
Oh, sorry. Council meeting locations from Councillor Annette. A recommendation about the top of the page. Council amends section 6.2 of its code of practice. Do I have a mover? Councillor Lynn, like to speak on that? Would someone like to second that motion? Councillor Peter, like to speak on that, Councillor Peter? Any comment or questions? Councillor Michael?
Yeah, I look with the greatest respect to Councillor Lynette, I'm against the motion, but I do wonder whether the motion has any practical effect anyway, because I think we've already had our 3 meetings at the Hewett Centre.
Yeah, I think it was only a one-off, wasn't it? This particular practice.
Yeah, it was just tidying it up. That's all. Yeah.
Happy with that? Councillor Simon?
Yeah, just a similar thing. I don't think has much of an effect anymore, but except that I thought originally the idea was to have 3 meetings and then have some sort of report or whatever saying, did it work? How much did it cost? That sort of stuff, which it didn't really work and it probably cost too much. And so therefore we're probably not going to do it anymore. But I'm saying I thought that was the idea anyway. So
yeah,
on the costing, but I don't think if you ever got a report on how effective it was. But we just know, I know that's what I mean. So it's all good. We can get rid of it, but it's a bit pointless.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Then we move on to almost finished, councillors. Oh, I think we are. Let's go. We've done that, yeah. There was something right down the back here. Motions without notice, I think we called that before. I don't have any of those. And there was something right down the back. I recall. No. Next meeting, that's what I was looking for. The next meeting is on the 10th of December. It's a very short time frame, obviously, so the agenda might be a little bit different in its preparation and its delivery. Do you want to comment on that, Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bill. Looking to put the agenda, technically speaking, the agenda would need to go out this Friday, but we literally have only just finished writing agendas, so we probably need a little bit of a breather, and the agendas will go out either next Wednesday night or next Thursday night. That will be our target. So we're not expecting any 400-page and 5 or 6 deeds in it for the next one. So it should be a fairly light agenda.
Thank you, Richard. Well, councillors, well, thank you very much for your input tonight. I think it was an excellent meeting. Lots done, and I close the meeting and invite you to dinner.